Selamat Bitzot, Marhaba, everywhere around the world. My name is Aron. Welcome to a new episode of Horn of Africa TV. Today, I'm here with a very interesting topic that I'm going to talk about with a very special person. Her name is Rahel, and she was recommended to me when I started asking questions about names. If you remember the last episode that I hosted, I spoke to Sayuba, a very smart girl from Germany, and we talked about the topic of names. So that gave me the idea to research names and to find people who really know about Eritrean names. So let's dive into it. Rahel, welcome to our episode today, our little chat about Eritrean names. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about your background and who you are and what you do? And yeah, let's start.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really very grateful for that. My name is, as you said, my name is Rahel Musa. I was born in Asmara, Eritrea. I grew up there. I went to school until the end of high school. I studied in Asmara. After that, I went to Tanzania, and I went to Makumira University, and I studied theology. At that time, that field was not known for women, live alone women, but also African women. So I'm really very proud to be one of the first two African women who graduated from that university. After that, I took some training in radio production, and I did work as a radio program producer in Nairobi, Kenya. Later on in my life, in 2005, I went back to school. I went to Bergen University and I studied education. I'm married. I have 3 children, and as my husband tells me, I have at the rank, and that is becoming a grandmother. So 4 grandchildren.
That's great. Nice. So yeah, well, when I started asking around people in my reach who know about Eritrean names and who can tell our viewers who might be Eritrean or not even Eritrean, who want to learn about conventions of Eritrean names, the background and development of naming conventions. A lot of people name you. So I wanted to ask, what is your connection to the topic of Eritrean names, and how is it that you developed that interest for that topic?
When I was studying theology, there was one subject that we have to deal with, and that was African traditional religion. It's a very huge field, but within that field, there was a specific topic that really interested me, and that was how do African societies or communities name their children? And at that time, I was young, and I was not well informed about my own culture, leave alone to know about the whole culture of the continent. So I started asking my father, and I learned a lot from my father. That's how I got the interest and the education. And just for clarity for the viewers, my father is Musa Aron, and he wrote a book called Mezgebe Qalat Smat Ertrawiyan. And this is a book. It's a dictionary about Eritrean names. And when I was going to school, my father was collecting information to write the dictionary. So that gave me an interest about
and the background. So basically a lot of hard facts and knowledge that you could, for the viewers, what would be the biggest when you say that you studied also African traditions, what is a big difference, let's say, looking at the Eritrean naming conventions compared to other East African or African? I mean, there's so many cultures and so many different cultures. So, but is there something specific about the Eritrean or our naming conventions, something that you think our viewers, especially the ones in the diaspora who might not know so much, should know?
Yeah, I mean, naming a child, every culture has its own process of naming a child. And when we compare it, you know, there is no better culture. So I'm really very proud of how we give names to our kids.
Yeah.
If we go back years ago, I mean, maybe 100 or so ago, people were given names in a very specific way. And that is, you know, we had a very high child mortality, maybe 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And, people were thinking, if a child dies, you know, they connect it with the belief or with the tradition of fairies. It is the fairies who takes the child.
Yeah.
So a family who experienced a high child mortality will not give his child, whether it's a boy or a girl, a nice name. They will give that child a bad name, like child, a hyena, a dog, or something like that.
Really?
The fairies will not like that baby, and they will not take that baby away. That was a tradition that we have long time ago. We don't have that tradition now, of course.
Yeah.
After independence, the child mortality is very low.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of vaccination and people take care of babies, so we don't face that. But long time ago, that's something that we had, which is a little bit different than other cultures. And then the other interesting culture that we have is, for example, within the Christian church or within Christianity, you know, we have so many days that are allocated to saints and angels. No? Saint Mary Day, Saint Michael. We go on and on. There are so many days. And if a child is born during Saint Mary's Day or Saint Michael's Day, that child gets a name like Welde Mikael, the son of Michael.
Yeah,
or
according to the saint of that.
According to the day that child is born. That is the religious aspect of our community. So you can say that we are very religious. And we give the name of our children on the day that they are born. So this is also a very unique naming of a child that we have within the Eritrean culture.
Okay, that's interesting. So when we take this into your personal life, yeah. So you have children, and I can imagine that someone who, you know, spends a significant amount of time researching names takes this task serious. So how did you go about finding a name for your children? Children, if I may ask.
A name is an identity, and every name has a story behind it.
Yeah.
Most of the names, they have story behind it. So when we got our first daughter, we were in Kenya, in Nairobi, and we called her Merkab. And the reason why we called her Merkab was we had a dream that one day Eritrea is going to be independent, and she's going to take us back to Eritrea
with a ship.
So that's, for us, Merkab is the Ark of Noah, where, you know, so many people were saved in that, the family of Noah and the animals were saved in that ark. So we decided to name her Merkab, so that she's going to take us back to Eritrea.
Wow, okay.
So that's one of my daughter's name. The second one we gave her after my husband's aunt who passed away, and she didn't have any children. So we wanted to remember her. So we said, we called her Bruchti.
Yeah. I've heard that this is actually also a convention, that if there is a family member who didn't have children as a woman. Okay. Is there other naming conventions like that? Like if let's say in memory of a passed away family member or significant?
Yes, in many families, you know, you give names of your deceased father or grandfather or grandmother or aunt so that you can remember those family members. So that's a very common way of giving names in Eritrea.
Yeah. So Berechti. And then
we have a third daughter, Sennight, which means, yeah. And the reason why we called her Sennight was we completed our education and we started working in Nairobi. So it was goodness for us. It was good for us. Yeah. So we called her Goodness, and that is based on our situation. And people call children based on their situation, whether it's a good situation or a bad situation. Yeah. They want to remember the occasion.
It's like a mark.
Situation. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. So it's a very individual approach to this. So when your children ask, why did you give us this name? You have a story behind it, and they carry this story with them, which makes the thing very unique. That makes me think about a lot of people like myself who grew up in the diaspora. I grew up in Germany, so we had a lot of, I grew up as the only Eritrean child in my school. And there were a lot of, German names, and my name, Abenet, was very unusual. And a lot of Germans, although it's quite easy to pronounce, have difficulties pronouncing it. So there's a lot of people nowadays who choose for easier names, names that are also very common in Western countries. How do you see this development? Is this, when did it start? And do you see also, because now these last years, I also see a lot of people coming back to really traditional names for their children. Where do you see is this based? And what is your recommendation when it comes to this, like your word of advice?
Yeah, when we talk about people in diaspora, I can understand the difficulty they face. For example, if we have a long name, like Gebrekti Abihir or Leta Haimanot, something like that, kids will suffer when they go to school.
Yeah,
their classmates cannot tell their names properly, and they can be frustrated about it. I understand that. So for parents who are in diaspora, we have to be very, very reasonable when we give names. We have to consider the situation. We don't want to be away from our tradition.
Yeah.
We really need to keep our identity and our tradition. And that's giving a name is one of the ways that we can keep our culture. There are so many ways to keep our culture, but naming our children the Eritrean way would be one way. So there are so many simple names that we can use that can be said easily and has a name and a story behind it.
Yeah.
So knowing Tigrinya is a very rich language. You can create a name. You can create, for example, after independence, before independence, if we are going to use religious names, as I told you earlier, we were using the days that the child was born and then giving it a prefix, adding Welde, Gebre, Lette, all that prefixes and
yeah.
add the name of an angel or a, but we also use the Bible. If we are Christians, we use the Holy Bible, and the Muslims, they use Quran to name their children. It's very interesting, some people, they just choose names from the Bible, whether they know the meaning of it or not. Maybe they just pick the name because of the story of that person in the Bible. So if the story is very bad, like Cain, for example, we don't name. Or Judas, we don't name that. We don't give our name because of what they did. Okay. We also give names of cities, rivers, mountains from the Bible, like Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Bethel, Delilah. Those are, places in Israel. But during the struggle and after independence, we started giving specific names. For example, we started giving names of places like Samhar, Barka, Keren, Dahadak. And there is one specific name that really interests me, Salina. Salina is an Italian word. It means salt, but it has a very specific meaning for us Eritreans. It's a place in Massawa. And people call their daughter Salina to remember the struggles that we had in Massawa. All the people, all the fighters who fell on that specific area of Salina, just to remember that they called their children Salina. So it has a story behind, and we started naming our children with local names of our mountains, of our rivers. For example, Mereb. Mereb is a name, and it's one of the rivers. And Soira is a name, one of our mountains. People are getting aware, they are going back to the tradition. And then after 91, especially children who were born in 1991, there are so many people who are called Johanna, which is That's a wonderful name. We use the Tigrinya name, which we never used as a name, but we gave our kids that name. And also Rim, that you
Rim,
said.
like my sister,
And Rim is Messer, my right. It has a story. We got our rights. We got our independence. So all those people who were named, who were given that name, they will tell you why they got that name.
That's beautiful.
As the situation goes on, people can give their names based on the situation they face.
So it's like almost like a historic marker. So when we look back into our family trees, we will be able to retell the history somewhat. Let's say it like this. Well, 91 was, of course, the biggest event, so to say. So a lot of names and a lot of joy is reflected in the naming, which is beautiful. And I think it's also, it's for us diaspora people, when we come back to Eritrea, there's always this situation when you come to the passport control, and it happened every time that I came, that there was someone asking me, the meaning of your name, huh? And especially when my parents were in the background, and I would be able to tell them what the meaning is. I mean, Abenet, you hear it everywhere and every day. And then also my sister. And so it feels like we put a lot of emphasis into our names, and we want that people really understand the background of their names. So I love that we take this so seriously. It is, however, like just like as a little side note, maybe you have an idea. In Germany, they have changed the law recently. I don't know, some years ago. and names have to be specifically female or male to be allowed. So for example, Meron is problematic because there are females and males. And Abinat, I've known as a unisex name as well. There's so many other names that have, you know, no gender. Yeah. Is there any resources that we can use for giving evidence that it is indeed a female name or a male name? Or is there any books? I mean, you've presented the book of your father, but most German people who work in these authorities probably won't be able to read it. Are there any English books for that? Or maybe we need someone to translate this book.
There might be some English names dictionaries. I have seen small books.
Yeah.
Naming your baby or something like that. Yeah. But I don't know how detailed those books go. And, you know, we have, if we are going to use Eritrean names,
yes,
those are very specific to Eritrean names. It's only few names that we use could be common names. For example, names that we got from Quran or from Bible. Those names could
be quite clear.
They are universal. Yeah, they are universal.
Yeah.
You can use any dictionary to find whether it's a name given to a male or a name given to a female. But the specific Eritrean names, I think the only book that I know about, and unfortunately, it's only written in Tigrinya. But maybe somebody else can translate it and write it in English so that people in diaspora can benefit from it.
Okay, that is a call out, an announcement to all the viewers out there.
Yeah.
If there are talented translators out there who really have understanding of our language, please let us know if you would be interested to translate this. This would be of great service for all the people out there who are not so proficient with the language, and especially with reading and writing. That would be amazing, actually. And I think a lot of people out there would need this because, for example, we when we were younger, we Googled the name Rim, and the name Rim has also, you know, in Arabic cultures, it's also used, but it does have a different meaning. So it would be just great to have a common resource we can all use when we are thinking of naming our children. Okay, I think we actually reached the end of our little talk, but I think it's just such an amazing topic to talk about, and I think every person carries, you know, a name. It's assigned to you by birth, so we carry it around. But there's not so many people writing about it. And yeah, again, all the people out there, if you are talented and if you know the language, please let us know. It would be great to have someone to translate that for all of us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. If I ever have a question regarding a name, I know who to ask and who to reach out.
No problem. I will use this book too.
Yes, as a reference, yes. And I think a lot of people are thinking about that. And what I really, really love is in my friend circles, there's a lot of people who are having babies, and there are beautiful Eritrean names that I see and that I hear. And that's a great way of carrying your culture to the next generation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I wish you a great day. What time is it with you now? It's 11 o'clock here.
It is, let me see. It's 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we have a chance to personally meet one day, maybe in Eritrea. There will be.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope soon.
Yeah, thank you. I do watch the Horn of Africa programs.
Yes?
Yes, and it's yes,
you will see.
Yeah, I do watch it. Yeah, it's a wonderful program.
Yeah, there is so much need. There's so many things that are interesting, and we have such a segmented viewership. We have a lot of young people, we have people in the diaspora, we have people who just recently came, and Tigrinya, we have Ethiopian, like Ethiopian languages, we have everything. So, and also we want to expand everything. So it's really supposed to be something for the Horn of African people. So
Yeah.
if there are Somalis out there who want to create content, there are people from Ethiopia, then they're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So your program especially is interesting, not only for us, but also for the people who want to learn about Eritrea.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahel. I wish you a very, very beautiful day.
Same to you. Good night.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.